Hey guys, it's Miss Silva, and for this lesson, we're going to be looking at the quadratic formula. But before we do that, we're going to factor this equation. So if you haven't done it already, go ahead and try it, pause the video, and then come back to it. All right, so if you tried it, we know that if there's no number in front of the x squared, one is understood. So we're going to start with identifying our a, our b, and our c. Now, when we factor, we want to multiply a times c. That gives us a positive 3. And because it's positive, we know we're going to be adding our factors. Then we're going to get our b value. That's going to be the number on the bottom. So let's start with our factors of 3. We've got 1 times 3. When we add these factors, it does not give us 7. And so we need to try different factors. Because 3 does not have any other factors, then that means that this quadratic function is not factorable. Now, in order for us to use our quadratic formula, that's our learning target for today, we need to first verify that the equation is in standard form. Remember, standard form is f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And remember, f of x could be either 0 or y. They all mean the same thing. By factoring, we identified our a, our b, and our c. And then now we want to calculate our discriminant. That's going to help us determine the number of solutions. We're going to substitute the values into the formula, and then we're going to solve for x, and like always, we simplify. This is a quadratic formula. You might remember it from your freshman year. It's minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2 times a. And our discriminant is everything under the radical. So in this case, it's only this highlighted region here that is under that square root sign. So why is the discriminant important? Well, our discriminant tells us the number of solutions and the types of solution. I can't remember what our solutions are. Our solutions are our x-intercepts, the roots of a quadratic function, the zeros. They all mean the same thing. Let's get solutions. And if you want it in a picture, that just means these points right here where the graph intersects the x-axis. There are three types or three possibilities that we could have. The first one is when we calculate b squared minus 4 times a times c, that it is greater than 0. If it's greater than 0, then that means my number is positive. And if that's so, we have two real solutions. So if it's positive, we have two real. And in a picture, it looks like where we have a graph and it intersects at 2 points on the x-axis. So this is solution number 1, and then this is my other solution. Solution number 2. Let's go on to the next one. If b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, that means we have one real solution. So on the graph, it'll look something where it only intersects at one point on the x-axis. So this is my one solution. And the graph could be facing up or down. Now let's look at this last one. If b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, that means that our number is going to be negative. And if that's the case, then that means we have two imaginary solutions. And that means it's not intersecting the x-axis at all. So no signatures. We have our steps on the left side. We want to verify that our equation is in standard form, which it is. Then we want to identify our A, our B, and our C. So our A is equal to 1. Remember, if there's no number, then we know we have a 1. Then we've got our B. B is equal to a positive 7, and C is equal to negative 3. So that takes care of step 2. Now we're going to calculate the discriminant to determine the number of solutions and the type of solutions. We've got our discriminant. We're going to write down the equation, which is b squared minus 4ac. Wherever we see the variable, we're going to put parentheses around it. We're going to put b here, a, and c. So our b is 7. Our a is 1. And our c is negative 3. So we've got 49. And then negative 4 times 1 times negative 3 is going to give us a positive 12. Now 49 plus 12 is 61. Because 61 is positive, that means we have 2 real solutions. So that takes care of step number 3. Now that we know how many solutions we have, let's go ahead and use the rest of the quadratic formula. Substitute our values and then solve for x. So using our quadratic formula, we've got negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And when we substitute again, we're going to put parentheses where there are variables. So negative parentheses plus or minus. Remember, we already got our discriminant. So here, I'm just going to put whatever value we got for our discriminant, which was 61. And then divided by 2 times a. Now my a is 1. And then my b was positive 7. So we've got negative 7 plus or minus square root of 61 divided by 2. Because 2 times 1 is 2. Okay. So this would be our solution. We want to double check that square root of 61 is simplified. And because there's no perfect square that 61 is divisible by, then it is in its simplest form. Now that means that we have 2 real solutions where we've got negative 7 minus square root of 61 over 2, and then this point here would be negative 7 plus square root of 61 divided by 2. Let's look at our next equation. Now notice how this one is not in standard form, so let's go ahead and put it in standard form. In order for it to be in standard form, we want to make sure it's equal to 0. We want to add 8 to both sides of the equation. We end up with 2x squared plus 8x plus 8 equals 0. Double check that it's in standard form, and it is. Now to make our lives easier, we can always check for the greatest common factor, and it does have a greatest common factor of 2. Let's go ahead and divide everything by 2. And so we have x squared plus 4x plus 4. Let's identify our A, our B, and our C. We've got 1, 4, and 4. And let's find our discriminant, which is b squared minus 4 times a times c. We've got b squared minus 4 times a times c. So my a goes here, my b goes here, and the c goes here. So we've got 4, 1, and 4. So let's go ahead and solve this. 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 times 1 times 4 is negative 16. And 16 minus 16 gives us a value of 0. Because it's equal to 0, that means we have one real solution. So let's find that one real solution using the quadratic formula. It's minus b plus or minus square root of 4, b squared minus 4ac. Okay, let's set it up. Minus b plus or minus. We already have our discriminant of 0. So we've got the square root of 0 divided by 2 times a. My a goes here, and our b goes here. My a is 1, and my b is 4. So we've got negative 4 plus and minus, that's 0, divided by 2. And negative 4 plus or minus 0 is basically negative 4 over 2. And our one solution is at x is equal to negative 2. So if we were to graph it, that means that we would have a solution at negative 2.